Well, hello and welcome to episode number 391 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. I'm Carlos, and in this week's show, British Airways and Virgin Atlantic perform a double takeoff to JFK for the double jabbed, some new information regarding the missing MH370 aircraft, and an American Airlines has a new regional jet that has rows of seats missing. In the military news this week, the UK's Royal Air Force expands its fleet of T6 Texans, and the King Air intelligence aircraft Gremlins are recovered, and a German Hercules takes its maiden flight. So joining me this week, he's not in the studio with me this week. He's not here at all because Matt Smith is having some time off. So he's not here this week. So I'm on my own in the studio. What is the worst that could happen? So giving me tech advice through his words of wisdom and the voice in my head that should be there really is, of course, Neville Bounds.
We were fully prepared, Carlos. There were no issues whatsoever.
No issues at all whatsoever. How are you, Nev?
I'm okay, mate. Yes, very nice. Good to be back after a couple of weeks off. First week off, celebrating a large birthday in Fuerteventura with Mrs. Nev, which was very pleasant indeed. And then a lot of... We were coming back on last Friday, of course, so couldn't get on the show then. And then this week has been absolutely full on with work, as is next week and the week after. So it's just non-stop at the moment. But I'll tell you more about my aviation adventures a bit later
in a moment.
on.
Yes.
Yes.
So as I said, Matt's not with us this week. He's in the Bermuda somewhere, sunning himself in his Bermuda shorts with a tequila in hand. But we have got the absolute legend that is with us back again this week. I'm so glad he's back as well, because we do miss him when he's not here. It is, of course, the pilot extraordinaire, Armando.
Hey guys, it's always happy. I'm always happy. I think I always mess that up. I'm always happy to be here in person. Geez, what is this, a radio show or something?
I know. No, that's tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Anyway, how are things with you, Armando?
Shameless plug. I like it. Pretty good. I've been flying a lot, like you guys, just working this whole week. Bunch of cool destinations. Went to Birmingham, Alabama. Spent a day in Atlanta, Jacksonville. Let's see, looking back, went up to the Northeast a little bit, went out to the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So our charter business is busy, which is a great thing for me. So
that's good. That's what I like to hear, Armando, that you're busy flying, racking up the hours in your logbook, which I hope you're keeping tabs on all the hours you're doing.
Oh, that's funny that you say that, Carlos, because we're going to have a story on that a little bit later.
Do you actually know off the top of your head how many hours you've got in the book so far, Armando, or is that?
I don't. It's funny. Probably 4,500, something like
that.
Oh, impressive.
That's what she said. Anyway, let's acknowledge everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room this evening. All the usual family members in there. We've got, going to quickly run through Lee Davies. We've got Captain Cruz, Richard Adams, Dirk S. Hello, Dirk. We've got Mazouz. Hello to you, Mazouz Karim. Jan Hubner. Hello to you, Jan. Hope you're well. Masha as well. Hello to you, Masha. Let me scroll down, make sure I don't miss anyone. Neil Lamworn, hello to you, Neil. Nice to see you in there. Our main man, Micah, as well, is in the chat room with his blue spanner of doom, keeping an eye on everyone in there, so make sure you behave yourselves. Alan White, hello to you, Alan, as well. And Alan, you're correct there, actually, yes, because there was a certain birthday that happened not so long back. Mr. Bounds, wasn't there, Mr. Bounds?
Yes, it was the 60th birthday.
30th, you said, Nev.
I know. But I was looking up all the things that you can get now when you're 60, certainly in England at least, and things like free prescriptions and all sorts of bus pass business. And we've booked 3 or 4 days in Belfast over Christmas. And of course I can get the senior citizens rate now for the for the meal and the hotel rate. So I phoned them up today just to pay the last bit of the deposit. She said, "Oh, is that for 2 seniors?" And I nearly said no. Then I realised, actually, no, it is, isn't it? Yes. Oh dear. But as you're near the mixing console,
yes,
Carlos, if you could turn Armando's volume up a little bit. There's a few complaints.
Armando's
in the chat room.
Volume.
It's a bit quiet, apparently. So,
well, look at. Speaking of the chat room, look at that. Look at all these nice compliments. Wow, Nev, you look more like 50.
oh, stop it!
Oh, jeez, he's chat room always flattering us.
There we go.
Mind you, I aged a lot last week with some pretty awful aviation activity, I have to say. I flew because British Airways don't fly directly to Fuerteventura at the moment.
Hold on, Nev.
What?
Is this an MPE?
No, it's just an observation.
Okay.
We'll go on.
And a minor rant, probably.
Continue.
Not going directly to Fuerteventura because BA don't fly there directly at the moment. So we flew to Madrid, had a night in Madrid and half a day there, which was lovely, before flying to Fuerteventura. Now, the first leg was on a 787-9, which was lovely because BA normally run A320s and A321s on those routes. It's a very nice piece of gear, I must say. Very quiet, nice big windows, the whole business. Flight level 430, cruising altitude, beautiful. Lovely PA from the flight deck, as you'd expect. Wonderful. However, Iberia Express, which was the leg from Madrid to Fuerteventura, about 2 hours 15 minutes on an A320 and on an A321 coming back, zero PA from the flight deck. Absolutely nothing at all. Actually, I should correct myself. There was a PA from both crews on the way back. Cabin crew, 10 minutes to landing in Spanish. And that's fair enough because it's a Spanish airline. Yeah. But that was it. No welcome, nothing. Absolute rubbish. And I just think that's a bit poor, really. It's all about communications, isn't it? And I don't know, maybe if it was a 45-minute regional turboprop flight, perhaps, I don't know. But, when it's 2.5 hours in a reasonable sized jet, it's reasonable to do a PA, isn't it? So that was a bit poor, I thought. And then, of course, we've got I was doing some flying for work this week, so I went to Brussels and back. And, of course, we've got all the QR codes and all the faffing about, and rocked up at Brussels airport. And the very nice lady behind the counter said, "You've got the wrong QR code." I'm going, well, that's the one that's come off the Belgian government website, and we're in Belgium, so that's all you're getting, I'm afraid. And then there was an argument about where I had been previously, and you have to say on your form where you had been in the last 7 days. So I wrote Spain because Fuerteventura is Spain. It's not mainland Spain, but it's a bit west, And so she asked me where I'd been, and so I said, I've been to Fuerteventura. Oh, but you put Spain on your thing. I'm going, well, it's the same, isn't it, really? It's the difference between, the Isle of Wight and Southampton, probably. So a bit of strop there. And then there was an instance, I checked in for the BA flight back. Oh, I hadn't got this right. And of course, I'm doing this a lot. So I've got it in triplicate, and I've got the paper copy, I've got the electronic copy, I've got the ins and outs of a cat. Anyway, whatever it is. So, so that was a little bit difficult. But there's a lot of people showing up for these flights without the correct paperwork. And that's naughty, because that means people like me get delayed, and I get cross about that. So, yes. So that was that. But apart from that, it was a very nice week away in the Canary Islands where it was 25 degrees centigrade. Thank you very much. And sunny for the most part, which was lovely.
So, Nev, your thoughts on the Dreamliner?
Oh, lovely. Yeah, not the first time I've been on one. I've been on a United one previously to Washington, which was very nice. This was a Dash 8 787, and very nicely equipped in the Club World area. And Mrs. Nev appreciated that very much. I don't think I've told her how much it cost, but she wasn't too concerned about that, as she lapped up the food and drink and the service as well. So.
Actually, Richard Adams says in the chat room, Nev, they obviously didn't know that you are Nev, as in, Nev from PTUK.
Well, I kind of just expect that now. But no, it's a great aircraft, actually. If you've not been on the Dreamliner, it is incredibly quiet, especially at takeoff and certainly at cruise altitude. Unbelievably quiet aircraft, very nice. And, of course, a bit of the reduced cabin altitude as well, which
6,000 feet, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, so that makes it nicer. So you feel a bit fresher at the other end, a bit more humidity in the cabin. But no, very very nice piece of gear, I must say. Actually, to be honest with you, nothing to choose between that and the A350. I don't think. Very similar. In terms of cabin atmosphere and also how relaxed one is. And if it was, I would say it's comparable to the 350-1000 that we went on, Carlos, to Dubai that time. So, yeah, lovely.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed your trip, Nev. It's obviously good to have you back, and I think it was a nice break for you, Mrs. B, wasn't it?
Certainly was. Yeah.
Yeah.
But glad to be back as well.
Excellent. So we've got loads of news to get through on the show this week. And if everyone's ready, shall we do some commercial news?
Let's do that, yes.
Let's go.
Ready to go.
So kicking off this week's first news story comes to us from skynews.com, and those of you who follow the newsreels will probably have seen this week that rival airlines BA and Virgin had quite the event this week at Heathrow Airport. So it says here that the rival airlines BA and Virgin Atlantic have operated synchronised departures from Heathrow to celebrate the end of the US travel ban for fully vaccinated passengers from the UK. Excited travellers queued to check in at the airport after the lifting of the ban, which brought an end to almost 2 years of coronavirus restrictions on incoming travellers to the US. The two flights took off from parallel runways at the airport in West London on Monday morning before heading to JFK in New York. The airlines have ramped up flights to meet demand, with 2,688 scheduled to operate between the UK and the US this month. This is up to 21% compared to October, but down 49% on pre-pandemic levels of November 2019. Transport Secretary Grant Snaps, always reminds me of some drink when I say that, said it was a significant moment as transatlantic travel has long been at the heart of UK aviation. It's the end of restrictions first imposed by former president at the start of the pandemic, which saw visitors banned from dozens of countries. Travellers must be fully jabbed and provide proof of negative COVID-19 test taken within 3 days of entering the country. Virgin Atlantic CEO Shay Wise said this is the tipping point for Virgin Atlantic and aviation in the UK at large. BA Chief Executive Sean Doyle said the reopening of the US borders was a moment to celebrate after more than 600 days of separation. And yeah, it's safe to say I think it's good news that this has finally happened. I can confirm that I've booked my coronavirus tests for before I fly to the US, which hopefully will be in December. But what do you think, Nev?
Oh, it's great stuff. Long overdue as well, and finally the two governments have got their act together, and we can go there again, which I'm delighted about. I just hope that, and I'm trying to be positive here, obviously, but some US immigration channels have been known to be a bit slow sometimes. So I do hope that they've got measures in place to deal with some of that, in case people may not have their paperwork quite in order, because we've all seen those horrendous queues sometimes. Having said that, I think everybody's glad to be back in the USA. And I shall be going there myself in January next year of a week's trip to Dallas Fort Worth with work. So yeah, great news, really good stuff.
So we've got the video playing here, Nev. For those of you watching YouTube stream, you'll see the video here, courtesy of Sky News, of the two aircraft taking off. Nev, can you honestly remember the last time that you saw parallel takeoffs? I can't myself remember the last time I saw that.
No, I've never seen it myself before. I think I have seen. I think the closest I've got to it is where what was it? It was probably a United 747 was on approach to land on 27 left, I think it was, and then had to go around at a late stage when there was already an aircraft departing on 27 right. So I suppose that's the same sort of thing, isn't it, really? But no, I've never seen it before. But no, good job by the helicopter crew and all the rest of it. So it was brilliant. Yeah.
I suppose it begs the question: who got there first?
Now, I think I'm right in saying, didn't the Virgin aircraft get there first? I think.
I don't know. Perhaps our glorious chat room will know the answer, but I don't know who got there first, because they both literally took off exactly the same time, didn't they?
Yeah, yeah. And obviously, it all depends on the exact routing across the Atlantic, because they need spacing and all the rest of it.
I think they had when I first found out about this, actually was from Adam, and then he had made a post with the aircraft tracks going across the Atlantic, and they were parallel there also, and pretty much flying together. This is as close to formation flying as airline pilots get, so it's pretty cool. John and I were talking about the logistics behind this last night when we were doing show notes. We were thinking, man, for this to happen and for them to take off at the same time, and all the people and all the ground crews and everybody involved. But in addition to that, to get slightly philosophical here in the United States, we had the Civil War in the 1800s, 1860, and there are many stories of Confederate and Union generals that would meet the night before a battle because they were either classmates from West Point or they had known each other before the separation. And I had this romantic vision of these two aircraft captains meeting somewhere in the terminal, saying, shaking hands and saying, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do the throttle up? What are we going to do for timing? And in order to put on a good show for this international achievement, I just kind of pictured both of these captains. I hope that it happened. I'm not sure that it did, but at least that's how I'm going to romanticize it.
Yeah.
Actually, I wonder what the pilots were thinking when they sat on the flight deck and you push your throttles all the way up, take off power, and you look to your right or look to your left or look to your right, and you've got the other. Because I don't know if you can see the actual. I don't think you can you? Nev, see
not
across...
not the entire length of the runway, because there's lots of terminal in between. But for certain parts of the runway, you can see what's going on the other side. But you should be looking in front, shouldn't you? Really, not to the side. Probably.
So let's move on to the next story. And Nev, you've got you're actually staying on the A350 sort of scheme with this one.
Yeah, this is interesting, isn't it? Airbus has demonstrated how formation flying can aid sustainability with two test Airbus A350s flying across the Atlantic in what has been dubbed the final demonstration, taking inspiration from the formation flying employed by geese. Airbus has been working hard on the idea since 2019. Across the world, the airline industry is looking to cut CO2 emissions. At the moment, no idea is off the table, with some such airlines such as Etihad going as far as to calculate optimal routes that avoid generating contrails, or chemtrails, as we sometimes call them. Whilst Airbus is pursuing hydrogen flight, a solution that may be easier to implement is formation flying, especially on high-density routes such as the North Atlantic tracks. In the morning, two Airbus A350s departed Toulouse in close succession. Taking off first was the A350-900, with manufacturer's serial number 1, registered as Foxtrot Whiskey X-Ray Whiskey Bravo. This departed from Toulouse as AIB-1, at 08:57. Moments later, the Airbus A350-1000 with MSN 59, registered as Foxtrot Whiskey Mike India Lima, took to the skies above Toulouse at 8:59 as AIB-2. Following a slight deviation in their flight path over France to line up, the two jets flew in formation from the west of France until they were well over Canada. They then flew to Montreal in formation over the Atlantic Ocean and landed just a minute apart between 10:40 and 10:41 respectively. The aircraft used the general air traffic airspace over the Atlantic to avoid clogging the North Atlantic tracks. It seems as though the mission was a success, and Airbus commented that during the flight the second aircraft saved more than 6 tonnes of CO2. According to the manufacturer, this equates to around 5% on long-haul flights. Commenting on the successful mission, the Airbus Chief Technical Officer, Sabine Klauke, said that this demonstration flight is a concrete example of our commitment to making our decarbonisation roadmap a reality. The opportunity to get this deployed for passenger aircraft around the middle of the decade is very promising. Well, how does it work? So let's have a think about how formation flying works. It's an interesting question that planes don't fly one behind the other, but instead in a diagonal pattern, as seen when birds such as ducks and geese fly over. The two aircraft have a connected flight control system that talks to each other. The aircraft following sits in the leader's wake updraft, which slightly reduces the work that it needs to do. Whilst the technology is undoubtedly exciting, it seems as though it would be a headache to implement. It would require aircraft departures to be coordinated to ensure that one aircraft isn't hanging around for another, which could prove challenging on a commercial basis. Instead, it seems more like a technology that could be employed when aircraft are entering major airways, such as the North Atlantic track system, at the same time. It would have been perfect for British Airways and Virgin Atlantic, who operated simultaneous flights from London Heathrow to New York yesterday, as we just reported. Of course, in this situation, you also need to decide which aircraft gets to follow and thus uses slightly less fuel. So it could cost a little less to operate. I'm just wondering, I mean, I think the idea is extremely interesting, but what about the prevailing winds? Because on the North Atlantic, I mean, there's some really strong winds blowing in either direction, and obviously ATC set up those tracks to optimize, in both directions. But I just wonder how that would work in real world stuff. I really can't think how it would. But
we need to ask our resident pilot, Nev, I think.
Yeah, I think we probably should. Yes.
Well, the flights would happen either way. So whether or not the prevailing winds are there or stronger or weaker, that flight's still going to happen. So I guess anything to say 5% of 6 tons and 5% of 20 tons, it's still 5%. So I was pretty interested in how these two aircraft are talking to each other, controlling each other's flight control system. That's interesting because in this show, we've talked a little bit about how the systems are almost immune to hacking, but this is an actual, communication system between two aircraft. Not that this is a hacking story. I'm not trying to turn it into a hacking story, but I just thought that's pretty unique. I don't think I've ever heard that other than the military trying to develop its wingman, unmanned wingman concept. It's kind of interesting to just relinquish control of your aircraft to the system being controlled by another aircraft. I don't know. But this is in the nascent stage, so I'm sure it will continue to evolve, and maybe it'll take off, pun intended. Maybe it won't. Maybe it's just a demonstration of potential technology, like we do many times, but it doesn't actually take off.
Yes, I don't know. I mean, again, because everyone is just doing everything they can to save fuel and CO2 emissions, almost anything seems to be on the table at the moment, doesn't it? So it's an interesting concept, I would say, certainly.
So, Armando, you have got the next story, and this is looking back at an event that happened in 2018.
Yeah, and I think we did a story on this. The NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board, says that a 2018 accident that killed 3 individuals was actually caused by this company, Tamarack Aerospace, their active winglet system. So this final report was actually released on 1 November, and it says the safety regulator says that the Tamarack active camber surface, or TACS in short, on the left wing was deployed asymmetrically and led to the Cessna Citation's crash. So TACS is an active aerodynamic control surface on that's mounted on the wingtip extensions that either hold their position and trail with the wing or deploy symmetrically to alleviate structural load. So there is a good YouTube video kind of actually from Tamarack Aerospace explaining why this system was developed, but there's a change in the load factor of the wing when you add winglets to it, and some of those changes at high G's or high angles of attack are not necessarily manufactured or what's the word I'm looking for? Accounted for by the manufacturer. So this active winglet system is actually like a mini little spoiler, a little mini aileron. And so apparently at some point, the TACS, this little winglet aileron thing, deployed, and then the NTSB couldn't determine why it deployed. And the resulting roll rate, although it was above the nominal threshold for detection by humans, so they didn't know that the aircraft was turning, the inner ear fluid. So it likely went unrecognized by the pilot due to the pilot's attention being directed towards the checklist and communications, and a lack of a visible horizon because the aircraft was in the clouds, so they didn't have that visual reference of the horizon. So after the autopilot disconnected, the pilot in the cockpit voice recorder was actually audibly surprised, and he didn't reduce the engine power or deploy the speed brakes, and the pilot was actually not able to regain control before the aircraft, crashed into the terrain. So really, really interesting thing. And Tamarack Aerospace is disputing this. They're disputing that their system was the causal factor in this crash, but the NTSB is kind of sticking to its guns and saying that these active winglets were the probable cause of the accident. So as a result of all of this, regulators in Europe and the US have pretty much grounded the 91 Cessna Citation jets that have the Atlas active winglet system. So yeah, interesting.
I'll take it that's the one on the screen now, Armando, which is the aircraft in question.
Yeah, that's it. That's a Cessna Citation, and Tamarack produces these active winglets for a number of different aircraft. But yeah, in this case, it was a Citation. And what probably happened too is the autoflight system was probably fighting it to the point where, you have almost a split control surface and split aerodynamic forces. And the system probably tried to fight it until it can't anymore. And then the autopilot disconnects, and then the pilot grabs controls, and it's like, what is going on right now? It can be really, really surprising when the autopilot kicks off and the aircraft is trimmed in a direction that you're absolutely not expecting it. And in this case, it rolled to the left and into the ground from 10,000 feet.
Wow. So moving on to story number 4. And who done the planning last night? Was it you and John?
This may be on purpose.
Yeah,
Carlos, so tell us about this.
We're just gonna have to wait a few minutes while this next story syncs, and then we have to download the program and install it, and add music, and anyway. So this story comes from AINonline.com, especially chosen for me by probably by Mr. Bounds. Actually, he probably put this one in there, and this is Corradine rolls out log 10 for the Apple Watch. Other watches are available, like the Honor Band 6. Anyway, professional pilot logbook software provider Corradine has launched a log 10 on the Apple Watch, already available for the iPhone, iMac and Mac. when they're synced. The new Log 10 logbook application allows pilots in the flight deck to file and access essential flight information through their watch. Corridine is committed to creating technology to accelerate the future of aviation, said CEO Noah Lieberman. Log 10 for Apple Watch is a natural step on that journey, with just a tap on the wrist when the pilot leaves the gate at JFK and another one when they arrive at SFO. They can make sure they are logging flights and staying safely within regulated limits. So Log 10 for Apple Watch captures details and then automatically updates on all of the pilot's devices. Pilots can tap Fly Now to start a flight entry in the logbooks and out when they leave their parking spot, with an option to change the time if necessary as well. Once the time out is logged, the takeoff airport is logged automatically using GPS coordinates. Upon arrival, the pilot taps in to finish logging the flight, and Log 10 will provide a summary with the departure and arrival airports, block time, air time, and night time, all of which are automatically registered. The flight is then logged. We'll hand things over to our two resident Apple people to discuss this amazing thing.
There's nothing to discuss. It's just standard stuff. It's what you'd expect from a fabulous operating system, certainly.
Thank you for plugging Apple, Carlos. That's awesome. I think that's where we leave the story.
I was nipping and poking and prodding myself whilst I was reading that story and coughing, which I turned the microphone down and stuff. So yeah, that's amazing. Anyway, moving on to the next story, Nev. And
hold on. I do want to talk about this, right? Because you probably still have a paper logbook.
I have got a paper one, yeah.
Paper logbook. So those are going away, Carlos. These new apps, so ForeFlight, Log 10, they are linked to the flight plans. They're linked to your electronic flight bag or your iPad, whatever your operator issues you. But they essentially, I spent like 3 weeks a couple years ago digitizing my entire logbook. At first, I was of the school of thought, keep a paper copy, but I kind of gave up on that because it's a lot of work, and it's so much easier now to just take off. And I don't have an Apple Watch, so I don't have it synced or anything like that. But I do hit, send to logbook at the end of the flight, and it's recorded my whole track. It's recorded what approach I did, what the flight route was, any changes, and the times. So now that all being said, I am an analog being still in a digital aircraft, so I prefer to have a paper release, and I still keep track of everything on paper with a pen and paper on the flight deck, just in case something does happen. It would be incredibly rare to lose. I think we have 3 iPads on the aircraft, and the guy I was flying with, my co-pilot, actually has this app, this Log 10, and he does have the little thing on his Apple Watch that he can literally just do the time. So for me, it's great backup. I like to write it with pen and paper on my release, including my clearance and everything, any other pertinent information for the flight. But that is kind of the old school way of doing it. I think a lot of people are starting out with digital logbooks, and this just makes it that much easier.
Sorry, I'm just reading the comments in the chat room. Dave Abbey's watching the video on the crisp video on his iPad, and someone, Megan Carrion, says listening to us through her Apple AirPods.
We should do a poll, or no, maybe not, because I think we know where the poll results would be.
Yeah, my unfortunately, if we'd done a poll, my finger would probably accidentally hit the stream button.
It's VHS versus Betamax all over again, isn't
it? Look, we could talk about this all night, man. We all know Android is better, it's far superior. Anyway, Nev, moving on to the next story, and it's something we haven't talked about for quite some time.
No, do you know, funny enough, I was just thinking about MH370 the other day, in the sense that we hadn't heard anything about it. But this is quite interesting, I think. In a new development in the search for MH370, aerospace engineer Richard Godfrey has discovered that after following the coastline of Sumatra, the Boeing 777 was put into a holding pattern for 22 minutes before proceeding south. Mr. Godfrey is using a revolutionary new tracking technology called WSPRnet to track MH370, which is hoped will lead to a new search. Using a set of tools, Mr. Godfrey said he's able to detect and track aircraft anywhere in the globe and at any time currently or historically, going back as far as 2009. The system has been undergoing a number of tests that have been set up by an ex-Qantas captain, Mike Glynn, and adjudicated by airlineratings.com, which have been very successful. Having verified the technology, Mr. Godfrey is currently tracking MH370 and reports as follows with the map. And I think Carlos has got a picture of that.
Yes, that's on the screen.
What I found out without looking for it, he said, was that MH370 entered a racetrack holding pattern at around 12 minutes past 7 UTC PM for around 22 minutes until 7:34. The flight path is at a constant ground speed of 497 knots and a constant altitude of 36,000 feet. There is no contrived descent or ascent to match the Inmarsat satellite data. There are no contrived turns to match the Inmarsat satellite data either. Now you might have to help me here, Armando. There's some abbreviations that I don't quite understand, but it says the Inmarsat satellite BTO and BFO data matches perfectly the timing, position and track at the first arc during the SATCOM call, and the second arc which was at 1941 UTC. On entering the holding pattern, MH370 was 150 nautical miles from the coast of Sumatra and 40 nautical miles from the second arc. A total of 33 pieces have been found by 16 unrelated people in 6 countries, with most being identified as being from MH370 or a Boeing 777. However, extensive underwater searches in the Indian Ocean have so far not located the wreckage of the aircraft. The WSPRnet propagation technical analysis is based on the 2007 International Reference Ionosphere. The IRI is a permanent joint scientific project of the Committee on Space. He uses software to trace radio waves around the globe. Proplat Pro was probably one of the first ionospheric physics-based HF radio signal ray tracing engines in the world for the PC, and has been maintained and developed for over 30 years. It uses both three-dimensional models of the ionosphere as well as three-dimensional topographical data of the Earth to provide unprecedented detail in modelling HF radio signal propagation worldwide. Together with navigation engines, Mr. Godfrey is able to determine both aircraft locations both in the present and through the use of historical data, which includes past flights. That is fascinating, isn't it? To be able to go back in time with that sort of technology. That's wow.
You can actually do a similar thing. So the BTO is the burst timing offset, and the BFO is a burst frequency offset. So you can do the same thing with cell phones. And I'm going to piggyback on Matt's 5G educational session from the other day. But in order for these algorithms to communicate and to send the data, there has to be a very tight timing, right, to the millisecond. And based on the aircraft's position from the satellites, so for the Inmarsat data to happen, it's essentially sending these data messages just like your phone is on a control channel. So cell phones have rake receivers, which is it's like actual receiver with 4 receivers, and one of them is always talking to the cell phone tower or its nearest tower, and then trying to figure out all the surrounding towers and which one has the best service. This is kind of similar to that. So it's kind of telling the through data control channel between the aircraft and the satellite. It's establishing how much anticipation the message needs to send off in order to hit the satellite at the right timing, so the trons don't get collided. So and all these are background messages that are happening in Marsat, and specifically within Marsat, it's also sending lat longs. So in addition to lat longs and these data burst control control messages, that you can sort of put together this three-dimensional model of where was this aircraft in relation to the satellites, and then from there kind of work backwards to figure it out, which is what this gentleman did. So
I'm not trying to be clever here, because I'm not, but why wasn't this thought about earlier on?
That's a great question. That's a great question. You would have thought that this would have been in cell phone forensics when law enforcement or anybody's trying to pinpoint a location. This is one of the first things that they look at is your ratches and your satches and all these other digital messages that are happening in the background to your phone. So why Inmarsat wouldn't have provided this data, or maybe they did and we just never found out about it, or maybe this gentleman just found out.
I'm sure there's a whole load of stuff that's not been reported and that isn't in the public domain, I would imagine. Yeah, you're right.
I think I'm with you.
Can you imagine if they actually do, find a position of this aircraft and actually... But I just have the feeling that even if they did find this aircraft, it's going to be so deep, it's going to be impossible to recover. But I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we put a man in space, so
yeah, true.
I guess never say never.
So
what was that? What was that movie, The Abyss? Like, we can do it. But anyway, going on.
So.
Yeah, Carlos, this one is from the website viewfromthewing.com, and this has to do with American Airlines flying regional jets that have missing rows of seats. So these customers may find themselves on regional jets that have, I think there's a picture in there that you can play out, but essentially it's just a big gap between seats there. And this particular picture that Carlos is going to put up there is from an American Eagle ERJ 175, which is operated by SkyWest. So this is a new aircraft which was just delivered in 2021 or August of 2021, and it's one of 10 E175s that they're currently flying for American. So the airline apparently modified the small number of aircraft. SkyWest did, in order to maintain their flying schedule and to ensure that they're complying with the terms of their pilot contract. So those modifications included temporarily removing some of these seats in both the first class and the main cabins, and these will remain in effect until 2022. So this all has to do with the scope clause. This we've talked about the scope clause a little bit on the show, but American Airlines' pilot scope clause limits SkyWest to flying regional jets that have between 66 and 76 seats to no more than 40% of their mainline narrow body fleet. So the retirement of the 757 and the E190 fleets reduced the number of these mainline narrow bodies, and now this is limiting the number of regional jets that can have this many seats. That is all. When I was talking with John about this last night, he was like, what is this again? Yeah, this is basically a scope clause as part of a contract between a major airline and its union and its pilots union to limit the number and the size of the aircraft that can be flown by the airline's regional partners. And of course, the whole goal of this is to protect the union pilots' jobs from a major airline from being outsourced to a regional airline. So I think this all came about in the 90s and generally only found in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. But there you go. American's not the only one that does this. United, I think Delta does this. So yeah, there you go. So if you're boarding an airplane and it's missing 2 rows of seats, that's why. It's because the union has limited the number of seats that can be in that airplane.
Good Lord, that's amazing, isn't it? Do you think that the there'd have to be much in the way of CG adjustment and weight and balance adjustment and that kind of thing.
Yeah, they probably did strategically remove rows in certain spots. So yeah, but you know what? Hey, as Alan says in the chat room, at least now you have more legroom than sitting in 1A.
Yes, all right.
What a nice treat it would be if you book an economy ticket and you have like,
that
5
much
feet of
leg
space in
room.
front of you.
Yeah.
Except you can't reach your bag. You got to get up and like.
Yeah, Mazuz Kareem in the chat room says you can't see Ryanair doing that somehow.
No, they would, Nev, but they'd charge you about £600 for the
they
privilege.
are, yes.
I don't know for sure, but I somehow think that the word union and Ryanair, they don't go together.
There you go. Yeah.
Anyway, next story. This one is all about the Air Race Classic to return in June. So after 2 years of cancellations, can't think why, the 2022 Air Race Classic is slated for June the 21st through to the 24th, with the race ending at Terre Haute Regional Airport. I probably absolutely butchered that.
Terre Haute.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Armando. It attracts several hundred people and they are here for a few days, Airport Executive Director Jeff Hoyser said the airport's board of directors on Wednesday. It'll mark the 45th annual race for women pilots and teams. While the race routes change annually, it covers around 2,400 statute miles, typically with 8 or 9 timing points. The 2022 competition is slated to start at Lakeland. Is that Lakeland, Florida? Is that?
Yep, that's correct.
With route stops in blimey, you picked this especially for me, didn't you? Moultrie, GA.
Yeah, Moultrie, Georgia, the home of Mall Aircraft.
Okay, Muscle Shoals, Alabama.
That's right. The home of Southern. What was it? Swamp Music.
That's it. Is it Hattiesburg, Mississippi?
You got it.
Pine Bluff, Arkansas.
Yeah.
Ada in Oklahoma.
Well done.
Yeah. Lawrence in Kansas.
Kansas, yeah.
Mount Vernon,
Illinois.
Okay. And
Mount Vernon, Illinois has a great cafe on the airfield and a nice little Hall of Fame museum.
Tullahoma in Tennessee. I know that one because I like a certain drink that comes from there. And the race ends in Terre Haute. Should have given this one a Nev. Anyway, the race had been slated to come to Terre Haute in 2020 and 2021, but was cancelled each year amid the COVID-19 pandemic. The Air Race Classics Incorporated is an all-volunteer, non-for-profit 501 organisation with a mission of encouraging and educating current and future female pilots, increasing public awareness of general aviation, demonstrating women's roles in aviation, and preserving and promoting the tradition of pioneering women in aviation. So I'm guessing this is the one you'll be heading to next year, Armando.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. When I was at Oshkosh a couple years ago and you walk into the EAA museum, they have this whole display about air races and all different kinds of air races. And, I was there with Megan and we saw, wow, the Cleveland Lakefront Air Race. The Air Race Classic, I think, goes back many, 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 many years. But it's essentially general aviation aircraft. So it's Cessnas, it's, Pipers and Comanches and all these airplanes and Moonies with just a big old race number put on the side. And the pilots, they have to fly VFR daytime only. And they're given these sort of challenges where they have to make these flybys at each timing point and then land at each of these airports. Pretty cool. I just love that these things are happening again. And one of the interviews that I'm actually working on is with one of the race directors for the Venture Cup, the EAA Venture Cup, which is a similar air race. So, except with experimental aircraft.
Wow, that sounds good. At least these things are starting to get back to happening again. It's nice to see the air shows starting to start off again. Hopefully next year will be a nice clear year of air shows happening across the globe. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, everybody is just egging to get out. We had an air show just in our one of the satellite Charlotte airports this last weekend. The whole family went down there. We saw some cool airplanes. I sent you guys some pictures of a flock of Mustangs, C-123. I think there was an F4. There was a C-46, and it was packed. I mean, there was a bunch of people out. So, and that's a tiny little airport in Charlotte. So everybody's getting out.
So, Nev, obviously you've got a little something to mention after you read this story about a certain BA email.
Well,
but anyway, Nev, this reminds me of a few years ago when me and you were at a certain air show many miles away. But we're not heading back there this year, unfortunately. But there is something good happening this year at this air show.
Yes, it's a pity that we're not at Dubai Air Show this year, isn't it? But we shall be back. I'm sure of that. No question about that. So it was a great event, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Well, this is on the nationalnews.com, and it says that Boeing's 777X wide-body aircraft landed in Dubai World Central at 14:02 p.m. on Tuesday, before its international debut next week at the Dubai Air Show, the first major aerospace exhibition in about 2 years. The 777-9 flight test aircraft made a nearly 15-hour non-stop flight from Seattle's Boeing Field to Dubai's Al Maktoum International Airport, marking the first international journey and the longest flight to date for the 777X, as the aircraft continues to undergo a rigorous test program, Boeing said in a statement. Boeing's move to display the 777X in Emirates' backyard in Dubai comes amid the airline's growing impatience over the aircraft's delay. Emirates, who's the launch customer for the 777X, has repeatedly lambasted Boeing for continued delays and lack of clarity on the jet program. Emirates will hold discussions with the Chicago-based plane maker before and during the Dubai Air Show about the aircraft. And Sheikh Ahmed bin Saeed Al Maktoum, who's the chairman and chief executive of Emirates Airline and Group, said last week the airline has ordered 126 of the 777 jets and 30 of the smaller 787 Dreamliner wide-body jets. The 777 family has a total of 351 orders and commitments from 8 customers around the world. First delivery of the plane is expected in late 2023, Boeing reported. The biannual Dubai Air Show will be held from November the 14th to the 18th at a dedicated site at Dubai World Central, which is where Carlos and I were. This year's event will feature 1,200 exhibitors, of which 371 are new and 80 are startups, event organiser Tarsus said. The new exhibitors come from countries including Belgium, Ukraine, the UK, the US, Greece, Israel, Switzerland, Brazil, the Czech Republic, Canada and Russia. So that's where business is done, isn't it? That's where orders are taken at air shows like that. But this 777X delay just goes on and on, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's good to see. I'll just run that video again just in case you missed that. There we go, the video of the 777X arriving. Very dusty, actually, Dubai World Centre there. But with those winglets, Nev, that's one of the things I think I would definitely have headed to had we have been going this year to the air show to have a good old look round there.
Yeah, definitely.
But, a very observant Richard Adams asks if our field correspondent is going to get access to the show. And the answer is yes, potentially, Richard.
Yes. So watch this space, I think, is what we say to that. But it's one of those air shows, Nev, I think, where every year I think it is different, and there is a lot to see and a lot to pack in. Even we were there for 2 days, but we had a fairly good access to various bits and pieces of the show. But I look forward to hopefully going back out there hopefully soon again. Maybe not.
We've got some BA vouchers to use from flights that we paid for but didn't take, so we've got a couple of years to use them. So I'm sure you'll find either Malta or Dubai will take our fancy.
Malta, if they change their routine, I think. Nev.
Well, yes, quite.
Anyway, Armando, you've got the next story and all about Avionics Sales.
Yeah, and I must say that chat room is filling up nicely halfway through the show. Yeah, this is a short story from AIN Online. The general aviation avionics industry has seen more than $1.7 billion in sales through the first 9 months, representing of 2021. I forgot what year we were in. Representing a growth of 5.4% year over year. That's according to statistics released yesterday by the Aircraft Electronics Association. Now that total takes into account all business and general aviation aircraft electronics, but does not include repairs, overhauls, extended warranties, or subscription services. Apparently 53% of the sales came from the retrofit market, while equipment included on delivery by airframers made up the balance. And the reason we put this story in there is this is huge with the advancements that have happened in general aviation avionics in the past 10 years. It is amazing to me that I can fly a Cessna 182 NAV3 with a G1000 and hop into a Citation Mustang, which is a very fast jet going 41,000 feet and 400 miles per hour with the exact same avionics system, a G1000, and I can hop over to a Caravan and drop skydivers at 14,000 feet at 90 knots and have a G1000 system. Additionally, the experimental market is just booming right now, and the amount of information and automation that you can put in a general aviation aircraft nowadays rivals even some of the aircraft that we had in the U.S. Air Force. And I'm sure even some of the we're going to call them legacy pilots, like Captain Jeff is in the chat room there. So some of these more experienced legacy pilots would would be very, very impressed with the types of avionics that are in here. Now, when I owned my little Lancer, it had all steam gauges, all round dials, and I wanted to put a dual Garmin G3X system with a Garmin GTN 750 touchscreen GPS, WAS enabled, and just to do that for that little aircraft, I got quoted $70,000. Yeah. Now, what's the price that you put on having that kind of situational awareness and external resources available to you, such as real-time weather and real-time traffic and things like that? But yeah, it's just amazing. I mean, even in the Pilatus fleet that we have, some of them are getting retrofitted with Garmin G600 systems, and Garmin's not the only one. You have Honeywell systems, you have AeroView systems, you've got Proline systems that you can retrofit airplanes with, and Genesis. Like on our DC-3, we were putting a Genesis system in there and removing all the steam gauges. I mean, those things are 150,000, not counting the engineering that goes behind it and the supplemental type certificates. So very, very cool. And I think anybody that's shopping around for an airplane nowadays, if you're looking for a $80,000 Mooney M21, one of the first things that you're already thinking is what's my budget to to retrofit some modern avionics in there. So very cool story.
Imagine my 1967 Cessna 150 that I learned. I started my training. Just imagine that with all glass. Well,
if you put it on an experimental certificate, you could put an iPad in a Stratus, and
then it becomes a technologically advanced aircraft. Then,
yeah, pretty cool what they're doing.
So, Nev, do you want to take the last one here about the Dash 8s?
Yeah, this is quite interesting. It's on the aeronews.net, and it says that de Havilland Canada has resumed production of their outstanding aircraft following the ratification of collective agreement extensions by members of Unifor Locals 673 and 112, who work at their Downsview site in Toronto. The decommissioning of the recently sold location will continue, with equipment decommissioned and stored whilst de Havilland reviews future production opportunities. Aside from remaining aircraft already partially completed, de Havilland appears to plan on keeping their manufacturing hiatus until sufficient demand arises. They stress their optimism for the future of their Dash 8 aircraft, saying that it wants to meet aircraft demand when the industry recovers from its post-2020 economic zeitgeist. In the statement, they couch the termination of the Dash 8 production in much softer sounding language, saying, "We believe that our upcoming pause in production is a responsible and prudent measure that reflects current industry conditions and will limit strain on the market and de Havilland Canada's supply base as the pandemic recovery occurs." In a cutthroat market, it's understandable for the cynical and paranoid to assume such remarks could be an optimistic softening of the blow, like quarrelling parents assuring the children that all is well, only hash out terms for the divorce after bedtime. Well, the Dash 8 has been seeing increasing competition from light jets, constantly boosting their efficiency, with a number of sustainable projects on the horizon for even more competition. So a soft shoe secret cancellation isn't highly likely with the Dash 8's base, but the right configuration could prove successful if offered in time. With assurances that the Dash 8 will return to normal, de Havilland seems invested in future sales of improved, more sustainable versions of the model. In July, the company announced projects with Pratt & Whitney Canada to create a hybrid powertrain for a Dash 8 100 demonstrator, a harbinger of future developments to come. The Dash 8 could see a robust sales future according to its low noise footprint. Owing to its low noise footprint, fuel efficiency, even in stock trim, and low carbon impact, all aspects that could provide a fine springboard into the alternatively fueled green model. If de Havilland can bring it to market quicker than the rest, then the Dash 8 could see a renaissance. Well, there's a lot of Dash 8s flying around, aren't there? I'm presumably thinking that they're quite inexpensive to operate as well. Use them on the right routes with the right payloads, and it's a pretty good aircraft, isn't it? Certainly, we used to see a lot of them here with Flybe on the regional routes and the near European routes too.
Yeah, except for its unique STOL capabilities, the short takeoff and landing. The problem with this whole thing is there's so many used jets on the market. I mean, the Embraer 145s, there's hundreds of them out there for probably the same price, and the E190s are being retired already, and it's just such a saturated jet market that operators want to go jets. I'm glad that they're optimistic. Airbus, not Airbus, Embraer just released a concept photo of their next 4 aircraft in development that are more carbon footprint friendly and more efficient, and those were a variety of turboprops with different engines. But
so, Mr. B, you had an email come through from BA, and I've actually managed to hack your account, Nev, and I've got that email here, which is, there we go, on the screen. You had this email come in, didn't you, from BA? What's the issue here?
Yes, I mean, I like receiving emails from BA, as you can imagine, and they're asking me to do a quick survey about my flight to Brussels the other day, and I thought, I'd be delighted to fill that in and give them scores and marks out of 10. Obviously, I was on an A319 for that short route. But they're showing a picture of an A380. So I know there's some artistic license going on there, but come on, guys, please, seriously.
So what's the review going to be like anyway, Nev? You're going to?
It was nice. I mean, brilliant. No problem at all. And of course, to be fair to them, they are running the A380 on the Madrid and Frankfurt routes at the moment, so I missed that by about a week actually, so that was a bit of a shame, but there you go. So no, I mean, perfectly nice flight on the A319 to Brussels, very prompt departure, nice bit of breakfast, and great crew. But anyway, just a bit of a pet peeve of mine. Let's have the aircraft. I'm not saying the exact reg or manufacturer's serial number. I think that's probably going a bit far, but let's have roughly the right sort of
picture
model number. I mean, I would have accepted an A320 even if it was an A319 319 that I flew on, but there you go.
So there we go. You heard it here first. So moving on to the next part of the show, which is our Caption This Just for Fun that we run every week on the show. And for those of you who follow us on social media, Facebook in me, but we follow Facebook if you don't already follow us on Facebook, Plain Talking UK. Every Wednesday, we try and pop up a little picture or caption, picture for you to caption on. And we look for your wittiest and most funny captions that you can come up with for that particular picture. This week's picture, which I'll pop up on the screen for those of you watching it in the world of YouTube now, there we go. Armando, we'll let you describe the picture currently on the screen. And
unfortunately, Armando's just gone for a comfort break,
okay,
or something similar. But
right, so Nev, far away.
It is a skydiver, extremely close to an aircraft, a passenger jet, with the sign PTUK 400th on his card that he's holding up.
I'm sure we'll get some comments from the chat room, but we did have some comments on Facebook for this particular picture, and I'll kick things off with the first comment, and this one came from Sandra. Let me just get the right camera there ready. There we go. This one came from Sandra, and she said, "Just casually dropping by to let you all know about the 400th Plain Talking UK podcast." So thank you for that, Sandra. Nev, you've got one from a certain member of our family here.
Yes, Jonathan Warner says Dr. Steph dropping in for the PT UK 400.
Do you know,
nice.
I wouldn't put it past Steph to attend the 400th in that kind of fashion, actually.
Yeah.
We've got next one is John, who says arrivals at Heathrow are reminded by Ian Palmer that the PTUK have a special episode coming up. Book early to avoid disappointment. I like that. Bit of shameless advertising there. And next one, Nev.
Yeah, Andrew says, Matt doing a spot of advertising. Well, we need all the revenue we can get these days, so why not? Why not?
And next one is from Mark, who says, "Smile all you like. You're not getting in with a fake ticket," he says. So thank you for that, Mark. It's quite an amusing. Have we got any comments from the chat room?
Oh yeah, look, we got.
Go on, fire away.
Dirk S in the chat room says, "Hitchhike to the 400th episode. We'll do everything to get there." Let's see. Alan White says a little bit of aerial advertising. Let's see. Oh, Richard Adams, again, very observant. "I'd be worried if an aircraft that's flying straight and level was also dropping at 120 miles per hour.
What's your take on that picture yourself, Armando?
Absolutely doable. The first thing that came to mind was surely Dr. Steph is doing some advertising for us. So
I thought
another one. Ad revenue from the show is going to be in free fall.
Yes.
So,
cool.
Brilliant, excellent this week. So thank you everyone who commented on this week, and don't forget it'll be back, and hopefully next Wednesday with some more excellent a picture for you to comment on and give us your funniest and wittiest comments. So thank you for everyone who commented this week. So Armando, I'm going to hand it over to you to introduce the next part of the show.
Oh, everybody showed up just in time. You can see the numbers pretty much doubled for this segment. Carlos, if you're ready, hit the button.
Help if I had the audio up, wouldn't it? Best laid plans and all that. Anyway, take it away, Armando.
Well done, Carlos. Well-oiled machine. This first military story is a little bit of a two-parter. For the first part's from flightglobal.com. The UK just signed a deal to expand its T6 trainer operations. Affinity Flying Training Services has been placed under contract to operate an expanded fleet of Beechcraft T6 primary trainers for the UK MOD. Each one of these is valued around 65 million pounds. The deal with Elbit Systems UK KBR joint venture Affinity covers the addition and use of 4 aircraft to be employed over a 12-year period. So while this new contract was announced on 8 November, the additional 4 aircraft have already been acquired and kept in readiness. Affinity reported the arrival of these extra T6s, which will join its 10 in-service brothers at the RAF's Valley, at the base at RAF Valley on Anglesey in November. The addition and operation of these new aircraft will provide increased training support and an uplift in training and flight hours for the UK Military Flight Training System program. Full capability will be in place by 2024, with work also including upgrades to key facilities. Now, the Elbit Systems UK chief, Martin Fawcett, said that this contract represents a significant step for the training of Royal Navy and RAF pilots. Following the successful delivery of the first phase of Affinity's flying training program, we are delighted to build and strengthen our partnership with the UK MOD as we support the training and of pilots of the future. There you go. So the T6S Texan continues to find success. Also growing the fleet. This is also from Flight Global, the RAF's Shadow surveillance fleet. Very ominous name there. As to grow by 2 aircraft and getting new defensive systems. The RAF has ordered 2 additional Shadow reconnaissance aircraft from Raytheon UK in a move that will grow its fleet to 8 of the aircraft. Now, the service also plans to upgrade the fleet's defensive systems to help the aircraft defend themselves while operating in unfriendly airspace. The MOD said on the 3rd of November that the contract with Raytheon UK is worth 110 million pounds. The first of the upgraded aircraft is to be returned to the RAF duties by June of 2023, with the 8th Shadow being delivered by the end of 2025, according to Group Captain Sean Gee. He is the senior officer responsible for the Shadow program. So now this aircraft was developed to help gather intelligence for the war in Afghanistan. They are modified Beechcraft King Air 350 CERs, and they, of course, carry electro-optical and electric sensors, basically police cameras, for the surveillance and acquisition of land targets. The RAF also says that its satellite communication links provide intelligence that can be quickly offboarded for further analysis. So very cool, very capable aircraft, very efficient aircraft, the King Air 350, and you can load a bunch of stuff with it on it and operate it with a minimal crew and minimal footprint and minimal maintenance. So good job to the RAF for both of these aircraft.
You know, I love fast jets. I think we'd all love to have a go on an F-35 and an F-18 and F-16. But the T6, I'd definitely love to have a go on flying one of those, Armando.
Oh yeah, you would love it. I mean, come on, it's as close to a fighter jet as you can.
I've probably got more. To be fair, I've probably got more chance of flying a T6 than I have a F-16 or F-35.
You could certainly fly an older T6, like the old radial engine T6. I'm sure we can find you a ride in one of those.
Perhaps I could come over and see you next month. Anyway. So next story, and this one is coming to us from the aviationist.com, and this headline: DARPA's X-61 Alpha Gremlin air vehicle recovered in flight for the first time. The successful test follows last year's failed attempt when the drones moved within inches of recovery. However, the X-61 was also lost due to an unexpected power system issue. The Defence Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, announced the first successful airborne recovery of an X-61A Gremlin air vehicle during the latest round of flight testing in October. The test follows the first failed attempts from last year when the Dynetics and DARPA made 9 attempts with the Gremlin, coming within a few inches from docking bullet extended from a C-130 Hercules. In that occasion, the testing team encountered a more dynamic relative movement than expected, requiring software changes. And we're going to pop a quick picture actually up on the screen here. There we go.
There's a video too, if you can.
This recovery was the culmination of years of hard work and demonstrates the feasibility of safe, reliable airborne recovery, said Lieutenant Colonel Paul Calhoun, Program Manager for Gremlins in DARPA, a Tactical Technology Office. Such capability will likely prove to be critical for the future's distribution air operations, said Tim Keeter, Gremlins Program Manager for Dynetics. Disclosed during an interview with Breaking Defense, Valerie Insignia said the successful recovery was performed on October the 29th, 2021, as predicted by the team. The test flight was also visible on ADSB tracking websites. Wow, really? With the C-130A's, which was a 1955 aircraft, which previously had served with the US Air Force and is now operated by the Specialized Aerial Services provider International Air Response, tracking while orbiting over the Dugway Proving Ground, which is in East Utah. Multiple tracks were flown at speeds between 160 knots and 200 knots, with altitudes varying from 9,500 feet to 14,500 feet. And flew legs of around 25 nautical miles. The in-flight recovery is performed by a roll-on, roll-off system, which includes the physical structure and the docking structure, the towed attitude, I should say, controlled bullet, and the in-flight stowage system installed inside the C-130 cargo bay. And the recovery itself happens in two phases, with the Gremlin first connecting to the docking system, which stabilizes it against harsh weather and turbulence generated by the mothership C-130, before being grabbed by the mechanical arm that recovers it inside the aircraft. This sounds like something out of Star Trek. Marvin Hill, Dynetics X-61A Recovery System Chief Engineer, described last year's recovery process, saying it's like fishing in the sky, except the fish weighs 1,200 pounds. Another way to describe it would be using the similarity with the probe and drogue air-to-air refueling, since the X-61 extends that probe and connects to the stabilized bullet, which is similar in many ways to the basket attached at the end of the fuel hose. So Armando, I'm going to quickly grab the video to this, so I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, like Mike has saying in the chat room, the whole idea of air-to-air recovery is not new. And my favorite one to always talk about is the Fulton recovery system, because it was just basically these catfish whiskers that turned into like the scissor system on a C-130. And the idea was you could have like a survivor on the ground that would deploy this balloon into the sky, and then the C-130 flying 180 knots would line itself up with the balloon and then catch you in the scissor system and then like pull you up into the sky. However, it was always that first part between 0 and 120 miles per hour that they decided, man, that can really hurt a human that we're trying to pick up that just survived the plane crash. So yeah, there's been different types of these systems, throughout history. I think what is kind of cool about this is the unmanned aspect of it. So it's, it's a drone. It's using its own flight control system, its own guidance system to essentially plug into that basket. It's pretty similar. Looking at the video, is pretty similar to just doing aerial refueling with a drogue and basket, or a basket and a probe. But I guess it's pretty cool to have a computer doing it itself. Now,
I can't find that video in the playout folder, but not to panic. Don't panic.
Oh, it's on YouTube, but okay. We'll put the link in the show notes if you really, or you can just Google it. Just Google the Gremlin first in-flight recovery, and you'll come up with a video, which is pretty neat. I imagine the usefulness of this is like you can deploy a unmanned aerial system close to somebody else's airspace and then have it go fly and go do some things and then come back to its mothership almost. But again, some of these technologies, are they gonna be employed in the way they are now? Probably not, but it's good R&D for something that we'll probably see in the future.
So Nev, you've got the next story.
Just before that, isn't it nice to that there's someone that knows what they're talking about on the show?
Is it
Brilliant.
Carlos?
Absolutely.
That's why we pay Armando the big bucks.
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he can barely spend it quick enough.
Still waiting for the check.
Well, this is on the aviationist.com, and it says that the first German C-130J Hercules performs maiden flight. The aircraft is the first of 6 C-130Js that will be operated together with 4 French ones in a joint binational squadron. The Bundeswehr announced on November the 8th that the maiden flight of the first German C-130J-30 Hercules cargo aircraft out of Lockheed Martin's facilities in Marietta, Georgia. The aircraft was rolled out of the assembly lines in July this year before heading to the paint shop, where it was spotted next month with the new dark grey livery and Luftwaffe markings. The US Defense Security Corporation Agency, the DCSA, approved a foreign military sale to Germany in 2018 for 3 C-130J 30s, which is a stretched variant of the standard C-130, and 3 KC-130Js, the tanker variant. The aircraft will be delivered together with various equipment, including the Link 16 data link, countermeasures dispensers, missile warning systems, radar warning receivers, and electro-optical and infrared imaging systems. The German Air Force decided to acquire the Hercules to perform airlift, airdrop, and air refueling missions and close the capability gap that would have been generated by the retirement of the similarly sized C-160 Transall, which is planned to be retired at the end of the year after 53 years of service. In fact, even if the A400M Atlas can provide all of the capabilities needed by the Luftwaffe, its large size represents a limit when operating from short or unprepared runways and when flying in support of the Special Forces, which is one of the capabilities mentioned when the C-130 procurement was announced. Now, the Luftwaffe C-130Js will be part of a French-German joint squadron based in Évreux, France, which was officially established in September after years of planning. The binational air transport squadron will have unrestricted exchange of aircraft, air crews and maintainers, as well as technical and logistical support based on a common pool of spare parts and a common service support contract. The 6 German aircraft will be joined by 4 French ones and for a total of 5 KC-130Js and 5 C-130J 30s. It's quite interesting, isn't it, how countries sort of team up together to try and get the best situation out of a number of aircraft, especially when it comes to sharing parts and service plans and that kind of thing. And that kind of makes sense, obviously, because Germany and France are very close together, geographically speaking, and it wouldn't be the first time they've done lots of things together in the past from a military point of view too. So, yeah. Interesting.
1954, the first C-130 came out. It was like...
It
There's like 2,500 of them.
Yeah, it amazes me the longevity of military aircraft generally. Obviously they have to be well maintained. I mean, maintained to a incredibly high standard in case they're needed into service, of course. But it's not uncommon to have aircraft with extremely long lifespans, is that?
Yeah, I can't wait to see which one of these aircraft, whether it's going to be the C-135, KC-135, or the B-52, or the C-130 is going to be the first to make it to 100 years. I mean, we should be on episode, 2,348 by then?
I will have retired or expired or both by then. Definitely.
Yeah, like a half gallon of milk.
There you go.
Yeah, pretty cool. C-130J. I can't believe it's already been 1999 it first came out. It's 400 of these already in service.
Amazing, isn't it? Amazing.
We still think of it as a new one.
Yeah.
Now, Armando, you've got the next story, haven't you?
Yeah, got to take it old school because I always do. This story is from warbirdnews.com. The Mosquito flying demo at the Planes of Fame Museum in Chino, California will be featuring a special aircraft on Saturday, November 20th. So you still have time to get there. This pending visit is an aerial demonstration is the de Havilland Mosquito FB Mark 6, serial number PZ474. Because of this unusual opportunity to see this rare airworthy example of Britain's what they called the Wooden Wonder. The museum is combining their regular Hangar Talk presentation with this month's Flying Demo Day. So the Hangar Talk session will look at the history of the de Havilland Aircraft Company, which is funny because we were just talking about the de Havilland Dash 8 before it was the Bombardier Q400, and the role that it played, the company, in advancing aviation. This discussion will, of course, focus heavily on the remarkable de Havilland Mosquito.
The Mosquito is a very unique design, not just because it was the only real twin-engine Merlin-powered aeroplane that was used during the Second World War, but because of the way it's constructed. So the de Havilland company had built some aeroplanes using this laminated plywood sandwich construction prior to World War II, and while everybody else was being told that the future was metal aeroplanes and those wooden ones were a thing of the past, this company kind of decided that in order to meet the specification that was put out for this twin-engine bomber, that they had to make it in this smooth, lightweight wooden construction, no armament. So the original philosophy was if you could build an airplane that was faster than the fighter that was trying to shoot you down, you could just run away from them. Incredibly, in 11 months, they went from the drawing board to flying the prototype without having an order from the UK Air Ministry. And they flew the prototype and then demonstrated it to the powers that be. And the performance was so fantastic that they just couldn't, they had to kind of swallow their pride and say, right, we'll have them. They realized they had such a unique design with a lot of character.
Catch an interview, much like Nick Codling exemplified a couple weeks ago. So very cool airplane. I really like the Mosquito, and I think there's one in Duxford that
we had a function together, gathering up as many Mosquito aircrew veterans as we could, and you got to appreciate how much it meant to them to see the aeroplane that they were.
These Mosquitoes, they were in service with the Australians, Canadians, Chinese, the Czechoslovak Air Force or Czech Air Force, Dominican Air Force, the French Air Force, Haitian Air Force, Israeli Air Force, New Zealand, Norwegian. Like, it just, the list goes on and on and on. There's not a lot of airplanes that did that, but yeah.
Hello.
Are you guys there?
Yeah, we're here. We're there. Don't panic. We're here.
Okay.
Yeah, I played a little bit of the video out there, so for those of you chances to see that. There's, I think they've got, I'm sure they've got two of these over at Duxford, actually, if I remember rightly. I'm sure they've got one, I'm sure there's one that flies with the formation, or the Warbirds group, and I think there's one also inside the hangar, which is next door to where our friend is over there, Nev, at...
oh, yes.
Then in the hangar there. I'm pretty sure
right.
it's in there. But thank you for putting those stories together, as always, Armando. Always good to have some military stories on the show. So we're going to start to wrap things up, but we are going to just mention a quick again about the 400th show that's coming up next year. This is going to be, for those of you who don't already know, this is going to be in February next year, all being well, on the 26th, which is a Saturday. And we are going to be at the museum over at the Brooklands Museum, aren't we, Nev?
Yes, looking forward to that massively. So that's Saturday the 26th of February. If you would like to come to the show, please send us an email to podcast@planetalkinguk.com. And we will add you to the list, and we'll also send you a link to the Brooklands Hotel, which is right next to the museum itself. Now, we have negotiated a special rate with them. You might find that the rate is slightly cheaper online, depending on where you're looking at hotels. However, you probably will not get the rate which includes breakfast, and you probably won't get the rate that allows you to cancel right up until the last minute on the day. I think 2 o'clock on the day, in fact.
Yeah, that's correct.
Is the rate that we've got. So again, with the old pandemic doing all sorts of funny business, it might be worth having a look at that, because it means if you did cancel, then you wouldn't be liable for any money. However, we are planning an extravaganza. It is in the planning process at the moment. There'll be some special guests there, people that you may know and people that you may not have met before. So it's going to be a really great time. But the only way that you can apply is to send us your details to podcast@planetalkinguk.com.
Yes, and don't forget to send those emails in to us if you want to attend. If you're listening to this as an audio podcast, that email again, podcast@planetalkinguk.com. So send us an email, tell us you want to attend the day, and one of the team will send an email across with the link to click on to book that hotel. And as Nev said there, you know, I made that assumption as well when I went to book the hotel. I said, Nev, I sent him a WhatsApp, didn't I, Nev? Said, Nev, that this is I can get it cheaper elsewhere. And then Nev did point out that, you know, you didn't get the cancellation option and also that breakfast as well on that price booking via other websites. Isn't that right, Nev? So
Yes.
If you want to send us an email, let us know you're coming. We have had a very good response to this as well. We are very, very impressed indeed with the amount of people who have emailed us here who are travelling from pretty much everywhere, Nev, aren't they?
Oh yes, all over the shop. And obviously things are a bit difficult over at APG, because Jeff's just said in the chat room, hope Nev doesn't mind, I'll be sharing his room. Well, good luck with that, Jeff. That's all I can say. Let's see how that pans out, shall we? No, we've got a lot of surprises, not all of which have been fully put into place yet, but yeah, I think it's going to be a great day. And also the museum itself, if you've not been to Brooklands Museum before, it's a great day out. Lots of things to do there, and the folks that run it most of them are volunteers, and they're very, very knowledgeable about everything that's at the museum. Quite often you get some classic car days there as well, so it'll be interesting to see if there's some classic cars on the day that we're there as well. But yeah, really looking forward to it. So that's September. No, it's not. It's Saturday, 26th
of February.
Yeah. 2022, which when you say it like that seems a long way off, but actually it's not, and it's going to come round terribly quickly, isn't it? So yeah, and for those of you who might be travelling up earlier, I think me and Nev and most of the team will probably be on site on the Friday, aren't we, Nev? We're going to be there on the Friday. So yes.
if you are staying at the hotel on the Friday evening, me and some of the team will be there. We can always get together, I expect, can't we, Nev, at the watering hole, as they say, and have a few beverages before Saturday. But yeah, we'll be there on the Friday, and then obviously we'll all be staying there on the Saturday night as well. And I think we're going to try and sort a little gathering out with some food, aren't we, for the evening, Nev? I think close by.
Yes, I can bring some sandwiches with me, certainly, and some crisps.
Yeah, I think I'll bring my little fridge out of the truck, and we can plug that in, and we can keep stuff cool. So yeah, that'll be good.
I'll bring the barbecue sauce from North Carolina.
Good lad.
Yeah, exactly. That if you need an excuse to come and see us all on the 400th, the excuse is there right here on the show, and that's Armando, because Armando's going to be there along with his boss Megan, who's also going to be there as well.
That's right. Even better than that is Brian Coleman asks, will there be beer there?
Oh, Brian.
Oh, Brian.
What a question. Seriously.
Hey, how about this? How about our WhatsApp number again, +44 757 22 491 66. We can use that to coordinate while we're at the show and set up some dinner plans and some drinky plans. Also, I've been made aware that we may have blown out everybody's eardrums during that last military story. So
yep. Apologies, that was my fault. I
Has-
missed the one thing. I missed that slider to quickly.
Oh, I thought you missed the one large note in bold red letters.
Yes,
that said,
I know.
Carlos,
I know.
do not play the audio. It was almost a perfect show, guys.
It was almost a perfect
show.
show. Yeah, even with Matt not here.
Yeah.
But
as we say, we'll fix it in post.
Exactly. Actually, some of the in the chat room has just said there actually that there are other options of hotels available close by. And my dad actually, Phil, he's booked into a hotel which is about 4 or 5 miles away, not very far. So there are other options available if the price is a little bit steep at the old the Brooklands Hotel. But obviously we will have vehicles on site if you are in need of a lift. I know I'll have the TriStar van Mark II with me.
Oh, that should be fun. Just pile a bunch of PTUK listeners in the back
of the van
after a couple
yeah.
of drinks.
Well, actually, I mean, back in the day, that's how most bands travelled around, isn't it? With their flight cases and their stuff and their special cigarettes and their drinks. Before the days of health and safety and seatbelts and stuff like that.
Health and safety. What happened there? Honestly,
Yes.
Who wants to know about health and
Oh,
safety?
dear.
Anyway, Nev, do you want to give our listeners the usual social media means of finding us in case they didn't already know?
In case you don't know. Well, firstly, the email address, podcast@planetalkinguk.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Just search any of those for Plane Talking UK and you'll find us there. Website is the 3 W's, planetalkinguk.com. Don't forget you can subscribe to our YouTube channel where you'll get notifications when we go live, and you can help shape the conversation of the show by joining us in the chat room, as many people have done. Just go to youtube.com and search for Plane Talking UK. You can also do your Amazon shopping if you wish through our website. We get a small referral fee, and you can also become a patron of the show as well. If you go to the website planetalkinguk.com, it tells you all about how to do that. And so looking forward to seeing as many people as we can for the 400th, of course.
Yes, and Dirk's moaning because we're going to finish too early, so we'll do a quick round robin before we go. It makes a change to finish early, guys. Come on. So Nev, what's going on in the world of Nev next week?
Well, I've got my colleague from Germany coming over on Monday that I work with, so I'm picking him up from Terminal 2 at Heathrow. Haven't done that for a long time. That's where Lufthansa fly into. So I'm with him for 3 days, so I shall be taking him around the delights of London and the home counties, scaring him witless because he'll be on the wrong side of the road, obviously. But I shall do the driving, I think. And then, so that's 3 days this week. Then I'm doing a bit of freelancing for another podcast that you may have heard of.
Dun, dun, dun.
On Thursday of this week, we're going down to Farnborough to do a quick recce for their 500th show, which will be coming up in December. And then the following week, I'm in Sweden for the week. So haven't been there because, again, due to the pandemic, Sweden put a block on anybody coming into the country virtually, apart from the Scandinavian countries. So I'm going back to Stockholm and Gothenburg for the week for business, which would be nice, and also staying over there for the weekend to meet up with a couple of my chums as well. So I have to say that Heathrow Terminal 5 is extremely busy now, just like it was before. And of course, there's me complaining previously to say, oh, it's not very busy, it's a bit like a ghost town. You may have seen some videos from me when the pandemic first hit. But now it is absolutely chock-a-block, especially as the US has opened up their flying. So I think I'm going to be complaining again that there are too many people at the airport and I can't cope. So
any chance I can borrow your gold card for next month, Nev?
Oh, yeah, of course you can. Yes, absolutely no problem at all. I'm sure you'll be allowed to do whatever you wish with it. But no, it's great. I mean, let's be honest about it. It's good to see that The airports are busy again. That means, you've got to remember that the number of people that are employed at an airport just for the ground operation, let alone flying the heavy metal, is enormous. It's tens of thousands of people, and of course a lot of them are now back at work, having come off of furlough. So that's really great news, and very important for everybody's economy as well. Definitely.
True. Armando, dare I ask how much flying you're doing next week?
Oh, actually, I'm going to put my lovely wife on the spot right now. She is competing in a martial arts competition tomorrow.
Say
this
what?
This is just proof of how much she is my boss, that both her and our daughter are in martial arts, and I am in like more of the drinking arts. But tomorrow we're going to a competition, and they are going to show everybody just how strong they are. Other than that, let's see. I think I'm going to be in Jacksonville, Florida, Plymouth, Massachusetts, and somewhere in the absolute middle of Missouri for a 4-day trip. So if you're in Plymouth, Mass, let me know. But that's so 6 days of flying this week before the next show. Crazy.
Wow. Okay. Well, a bit worried about you. I'm just a bit worried for you now, Armando. I'm just thinking, God, what happens when you turn down the ironing each week and say, no, I'm not doing the ironing?
It's not an option.
Okay.
It's not an option. Yeah.
Blimey. Okay.
These girls practice front kicks and palms to the face, like for fun.
Ooh.
But that's a different podcast.
Anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a specialist podcast, that is, isn't it? Yeah. Goodness me. Now, Carlos, you're out in the lorry again, aren't you? Next week.
Yes, yeah. I'm heading back to one of my least favourite venues in London, central London, the QE2 Centre, next week to do an exhibition, which I'm really looking forward to.
Good.
You can probably sense that there. Don't get me wrong, it's a lovely exhibition centre, as I said to the guys before we started the show. Brilliant exhibition centre. And London is a fabulous place to sort of work within. But when you want to park your vehicle after you've unloaded your equipment for setting up an exhibition stand, there's not very many options for parking in and around Westminster in London, central London. So
I must say, though, that particular venue, I know a couple of people very well there, and they are very nice people. So if you ever get into a bit of a pickle or you need a helping hand, I can put in a good word for you, definitely.
Well, funnily enough, when we were there a few weeks back, we did get friendly with the security guard, who says he's got quite a fondness of McVitie's chocolate digestive biscuits. Others are available. So I'm going fully loaded with those particular items when we go next week, just in case he is on the security gang.
It's a good currency to use, definitely.
Yeah. So I'm there next week. Exhibitions are starting again, which is great for me. Business is good with the exhibitions, so hopefully they'll be coming back thick and fast next year as well, all being well. And looking forward to getting my hands in on some exhibition stand work, 'cause that's quite fun. So looking forward to that. So that's about it, guys and girls. That's where we are sadly going to bring the episode to a close. But thanks everyone for joining us this week. As always, it's been great to have all the family members in the chat room with us as well. Don't forget, if you download the show and listen to it as an audio podcast, which I do many different aviation podcasts myself, if you have a spare few minutes on your day, it'd be lovely if you could leave us a little review on iTunes on there. It does help with the iTunes actual stats, so we'd love a little review on there if you love the show. We'd love to hear from you as well, so don't forget, we'd love some feedback from you. Send us an email and we'd love to hear from you guys and girls. podcast@planetalkinguk.com is the email address to send it to. That's it then. I'm going to hand things over to Nev, I think, to finish tonight's show. So Nev, over to you.
Thank you, Carlos. Well, thanks everybody in the chat room. Really appreciate your attendance and your comedy as well, because it's always good laugh looking at what's going on in there. But hope everyone has a great week, and we look forward to seeing you same time next week. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.